Okay, welcome to today's session. If we look at our progress on Learn Python Free, we have a tick next to the magic 8 ball, a tick next to Sal's shipping, and now we're going to do a lesson, it looks like. Introduction to bugs. First actual case of bug being found. If I click on that, what does it open? It opens this picture. Let's zoom out. Look at that. It looks like these are notes from, I've already seen, is it Grace Hopper? 1525, started mult adder test. 1545, relay number moth in relay number 70, panel F, first actual case of bug being found. And then 45 minutes later at 4:30, 1630, Actimist standard, and then 1740 Cloud Dorm. The story goes that on September the 9th, 1947, computer scientist Grace Hopper found a moth in the Harvard Mark II computer's logbook and reported the world's first literal computer bug. However, the term bug in the sense of technical error dates back at least to 1878 and with Thomas Edison. Python refers to the mistakes within the program as errors and will point to the location where an error occurred with a circumflex character. When programs throw errors that we didn't expect to encounter, we call those errors bugs. Programmers call the process of updating the program so that it no longer produces bugs debugging. During your programming journey, you are destined to encounter innumerable red errors. Some even say that 75% of development time is spent on debugging. But what makes a programmer successful isn't avoiding errors, it's knowing how to solve them. And a good place to start is understanding what they are. In Python, there are many different ways of classifying errors, but here are some common ones. We have a syntax error, an error caused by not following the proper structure of the language, or the syntax of the language. A name error, errors reported when the interpreter detects a variable that is unknown. A type error, errors thrown when an operation is applied to an object of an inappropriate type. In this mini lesson, we will be looking at these different error messages, and you'll get some practice by debugging them one by one. Click Next to continue. I'm just going to remove this box, which says we've done 4 days this week of coding. So first of all, syntax errors. When we are writing Python programs, the interpreter is our first line of defense against errors. Syntax error means there is something wrong with the way your program is written. Punctuation that does not belong, a command where it is not expected, or a missing parenthesis can all trigger a syntax error. Here's an example of a syntax error message. So it might say file script.py line 1 print hello world, and we have a circumflex saying we need more here, or the problem is with hello world. It's as if it's pointing at the argument in the function, the thing fed into the function, the argument. Syntax error, invalid syntax. The interpreter will tell us where it got into trouble, and its best guess as to what is wrong. After reading the error message, we can assume that the cause for this error is a lack of quotation marks around hello world. So we can't just do print opening bracket hello world closing bracket, we have to have speech marks around the hello and closing after the world exclamation mark. Some common syntax errors are you've misspelled a Python keyword, like else or if. I mean, look. Okay, I'm jumping the gun there. That's a keyword that's misspelt here. It should be elif, not ellie. You've missed a colon. That's a syntax error. It's not called a punctuation error, it's a syntax error. You've missed off the closing parenthesis, or square bracket, or curly brace. Instructions. In script.py, your coworker Carolyn wrote a fortune cookie program that is supposed to print out a possible fortune based on a random number and an if, elif, else statement. Run the program to check it out. So we import random. We assign to fortune random.random integer, the randint function, random.randint. If fortune is equal to 0, print, may you one day be carbon neutral. So I'm just going to space that out to show I've read it. So remember, fortune is the variable we assigned the random integer up here, and it's going to be between 0 and 4. And remember, when I see parentheses, they're very neat, aren't they? They go right round the numbers. They're exclusive, or are they inclusive? Does 0 and 4 get included in it? Well, no. So you're right, yeah. When we have parentheses around a range, parentheses, they literally look like they're quite close-knit, and they are. So that makes me think of exclusivity, and so this range is exclusive. It's 0 to 4. No, you're wrong. It can be 0 or 4, presumably. Anyway, so that was our bad attempt at trying to remember that. So if the fortune is 0, we're going to print that message. If the fortune is 1 is equal to 1, there we have that relational operator. If the fortune is equal to 2, colon, print no snowflake feels responsible for an avalanche. We have that relational operator there, the equals relational operator. It's not the assignment operator. If fortune is equal to 3, that is a relational operator. Elif fortune is equal to 4. Let's run the program, and we get a syntax error, and we've got a tick next to that. Oh no, there are 3 syntax errors inside script.py. Can you find them all? Yep, so after the if here, we need a colon. I'm going to check we've got colons and all the others. Yep, yes, and there's no else. Fine. I can see a second problem here. This should be elif, so that's 2. Now I'm going to check the speech marks on all the print functions. Yes, we have opening speech mark here. Get something off my finger. So yeah, we have the opening speech mark here and the closing speech mark here. The opening speech mark here and the closing speech marks here. The opening speech marks here and the closing speech marks here. The opening speech marks here and the closing speech marks here. But we have no closing rounded bracket. So I'm going to put that there, or a parenthesis. These ones are sometimes called. And now let's run. Good. And so the random number this time happened to be 2, because we've got this message: no snowflake feels responsible for an avalanche, and that message doesn't appear anywhere else. Okay. Next, name errors. A name error is reported by the Python interpreter. So the Python interpreter, that's the thing that tells us about these errors. Because think about it, the programs are just, how can I make this point? Programs are just programs. If they fail, they fail. So it's a blessing that we have this extra entity called the Python interpreter. A name error is reported by the Python interpreter when it detects a variable that is unknown. My point is, it's not a given that we would be told all these different types of error. I mean, I can imagine a world in which the program just fails and there's just one type of failure. So someone has gone out of their way to make it so that we can be told, oh, it's a name error, oh, it's a syntax error. And it's reported by this thing called the Python interpreter. So name error, this can occur if a variable is used before it has been assigned a value, or if a variable name is spelled differently than the point at which it was defined. The Python interpreter will display the line of code where the name error was detected and indicate which name is found that was not defined. So here's an example of a name error message. So the file, we're given the name of the file, it's script.py, and it's on line 1 in the module. Print score. Name error. Name score is not defined. This error is suggesting that the variable score was never defined in the program. Some common name errors are misspelling a variable name, or just forgetting to define a variable. So you go ahead and use it somewhere, but you haven't defined it. You haven't said. Sometimes it's called, they don't use the word declaration here, but there's sometimes talk of declaring variables. You have to declare it. In script, which means just say, okay, score, we're going to assign to it either some blanked out speech marks or an actual value, or what else? I think there's something they do with numbers as well. In script.py, another teammate, Alex, wrote a "Who wants to be a millionaire?" question and 4 options. If the answer is an uppercase, what happens if I click that?
Sunripe, the marula fruit falls. Our African spirit rippling out into the world. Real marula, only in Amarula, the spirit of Africa.
All right, Mina, although...
Yeah. So run the program to check it out. So let's have a look at this program. We do run. So score, this variable is assigned 0. Option 1 is Fresca. Option 2, we've assigned V8. Option 4 equals, we've assigned A and W. And we then print a message saying, for ordering his favourite beverages on demand, LBJ had 4 buttons installed in the Oval Office, labelled coffee, tea, Coke, and what. And we then have 4 print statements, and they're doing this thing where they use the comma to separate the 2 arguments. So they have a string, comma, and then just name that variable. But I can already see the problem is, you'll notice that option 3 is missing up here. So you'll see here we have option 1 equals, option 2 equals, option 4 equals, but there's no option 3. We haven't declared it or assigned a value. So if we do a print function here where we bring in option 3, we can see that that's going to be a problem. Well, where's option 3? What's that equal to? We have this answer variable. So we've got score variable, answer variable. We're going to assign that a value of A, or assign a value of A to that. But we're not printing it, so don't worry. So the contestant won't know. If an if statement, if answer is equal to A, or answer is equal to A, lowercase a, then score will have added to it 100. But of course score is nowhere, SCOR. We have score, and that's probably what they meant, just using a bit of common sense, a bit of intuition there. You know, it's perfectly feasible that they wrote a program with SCOR and SCORE. There's 2 distinct variables, but let's face it, they probably didn't want to do that. So print, and then this is \n, that just means put it on a new line to give a bit of space, print correct. Actually, what's interesting is if we look at the output here, A and B have been printed. Why has it not printed D? Because we've got print D option 4. And we have actually assigned a value to option 4. We've said option 4 will assign to that a ampersand W. But that doesn't appear here. That's quite interesting, I think. Is it because it just stops after the program has failed for option 3, so we don't even try to do this print statement here. So, oh no, there are two. So it says, oh no, there are two name errors. Can you find them both? So I think we can. Is it a question on here? I don't think so. Who was the first president to have electricity in the White House? Ulysses S. Grant, Benjamin Harrison, Chester Arthur, or Andrew Johnson? I do not know the answer. I've no idea. I'm afraid I don't know my American presidents at all. Ulysses S. Grant, Andrew Johnson.
That would be the 1800s. I think it's probably Harrison.
Her words were, "It's probably Harrison."
This is the most painful, nervous. This is terrifying. She's so much smarter than I am, though. And she knows this stuff. See, truthfully, I don't even know if Benjamin Harrison was a president. Did you know he was a president?
I can't say anything.
So, what I'm trying to say is, she's much smarter than I am in so many facets that she would even know that Benjamin Harrison was a president, and enough to distinguish that it wasn't Grant. I'm a gambling man, and shame on me if this is wrong, but I'm doing this because having $1 million right now in this moment is a game changer for many, many families. And yes, $500,000 is as well.
Just answer
and I
the
want to
question.
say no. Just take the money.
Oh Christ!
But I'm not. And if you're wrong, it's not your fault. This is all my fault.
Correct.
I didn't do well enough at school, and I was a terrible student. So I became a chef.
So I just want to go over the stakes here. You've got $500,000. If you get this right, you'll win $1 million. You know that. If you don't, you drop all the way down to $32,000. So, for all intents and purposes, $468,000 is at stake right now. No celebrity in the 20 years that this show has been on ever won $1 million.
How many of them have gotten the last answer wrong?
Well, Norm Macdonald, as I recall, had the right answer, but Regis talked him out of it.
Oh my God.
No one's ever gone for it. They've all walked away.
As much as I want to walk away, and the embarrassment I will have
I'm gonna
the rest
say
of my life for
Andrew Johnson.
getting it wrong. It means more to me to get this right, to put a spotlight on the industry in need. And at this point, the way things are, things are pretty bad.
Yeah.
And
Go on, pick an answer.
Imagine I would be in this position, and I've always told myself I'm going for the $1 million, so I'm going to let my stupid
Pick an answer.
confidence, bravado win out. I'm going to go, final answer. B, Benjamin Harrison, final answer.
Damn.
God, no.
So I'm wrong.
Well, you're no Norm Macdonald. And I'm no Regis. We all know that. God, I wish I was. But David Chang, your metallic testicles just won you $1 million for your charity.
So, no, the answers are not in that video. Anyway, we're just here to correct the name errors, in fairness. There's variable used but not defined in the program. No, score is defined up here. Print. So if, let's look at this if block. If answer is answer defined, yeah, we've given it a value here. Answer is A. If answer is A or answer equals A, score will be assigned, will have 100 added to it. That's the add equals operator. It's just add equals AE. Print correct, else print nope, sorry. Okay, yeah, okay. We're using the option free variable. I'll just say value. Okay. Coffee, tea, Coke, Fresca. So that's the correct answer, option 1. I'll put lemonade as the potential answer. Okay. So what is Fresca? Fresca. A grapefruit flavoured citrus soft drink created by the Coca-Cola Company. Borrowing the word fresca, meaning fresh, from Italian, Spanish. Fresca. Thank you. Type errors. A type error is reported by the Python interpreter when an operation is applied to a variable of an inappropriate type. This can occur in Python when one attempts to use an operator on something of the incorrect type. For example, let's see what happens when we try and add together two incompatible types. So we've got concatenation here, the plus, and we've done 2 in single quotation marks plus 0.25, the numeric value. So one value, string, plus numeric value, 2 different values, and we've assigned the answer to piggy bank. Well, there will be a type error message. A type error message. Line 1 in module. Type error. It must be string, not float. This error is reporting that 0.25 is not a string. Some common type errors are accidentally adding or subtracting a string value. So I don't know why people would do that. Why would you subtract a string value? I can see why you'd add a string value. I mean, that's what really happened here in a way. We tried to add a string to a number. Calling a function on something of the incorrect type. Instructions. The word got out in the office that you are a pro bug catcher. Another peer, Alicia, pops out of the blue and hands you a program that calculates the area of a triangle, a rectangle, and a circle. Run the program to check it out. Oh no, there's one type error. Can you find it? So just take a look at this. Get used to looking at the red text because you don't want to get in the habit of just ignoring it. So you want it to become more familiar. You want to be comfortable in going into it. File. And there we have in speech marks the name of the file. So it's /home /cc user /workspace errors in Python type errors /script.py. Line 15, comma line 15, and then it says in module. Print the rectangle area is plus area. So the problem seems to be with this print statement. No, that's the triangle area. So yeah, with this print statement here, and I've done this you think it's very reasonable to just concatenate the string and the area will be dropped into the string. So we'll use this plus symbol. But you can't do that because that is a bit like adding a number to a string. How can you add a number to a string? You can add a number to a number, that makes sense, but you can't. It's like saying, what is pineapple plus 7? So what you can actually do is just feed in as a separate argument the value that you want to be suffixed onto the end of this string. It's just a rule that you can have this second argument for a variable. So if we run that again, and now it works, the rectangle area is, and that sentence prints lovely, prints nicely. The rectangle area is 24. Review. Finding bugs is a huge part of a programmer's life. Don't be intimidated by them. In fact, errors in your code mean you're trying to do something cool. In this lesson, we've learned about the 3 types of Python errors. Syntax error, an error caused by not following the proper structure or syntax of the language. A name error, errors are reported when the interpreter detects an object that is unknown. A type error, errors thrown when an operation is applied to an object of an inappropriate type. There is also another type of error that doesn't have error messages that we will cover down the line. Logic errors. Errors found by the programmer when the program isn't doing what it's intending to do. Remember, Google and Stack Overflow are a programmer's BFFs, best friends forever, in situations where an error is giving you a lot of trouble. For some more motivation, check out this blog post. We wish you the best in your bug squashing journey. So here's a blog post, and it's on codecademy.com/resources/blog. So it looks like they have a Codecademy blog. Learning from errors in your code. And you can toggle between dark mode and light mode. Search bar. Tired of error messages? You shouldn't be, and here's why. So this was written in July of 2018, and it's by Cole Romano. Learning to code can be a frustrating endeavour because you are destined to encounter many red errors along the way. What makes a programmer successful isn't avoiding errors. No programmer can avoid them. Great programmers understand that errors are part of the process, and they know how to find the solution to each while learning something new from them. In this article, we'll teach you how to think about errors in your code a little differently. Red is a beautiful colour. We're conditioned by society to be afraid of the colour red. Stop, danger, do not enter. All loud red signs telling us to turn around, don't go in there, you'll get hurt. It's so easy to carry this mindset over to coding that many new programmers get discouraged and distraught over the red error messages their compilers spit out. They think, oh no, I've done something wrong again. And clearly coding isn't for me, even the computer knows. But that's the wrong way of thinking. Every programmer, even the most experienced ones, encounter errors all the time. In fact, believe it or not, experienced programmers likely encounter far more errors than a new program ever will. Errors in your code mean you're trying to do something cool. Consider the totally made up graph below. So we have complexity of your code, and on the vertical we have the number of errors you'll encounter. So we can see that as the complexity of your code increases, the number of errors you'll encounter also goes up. As your code increases in complexity, the number of errors you'll encounter rises at a similar rate. An error means you're trying to do something that might be a little complicated, or very complicated, and it doesn't quite work yet. But by no means is it a sign that you should stop trying. In fact, there are entire engineering roles built around finding and fixing errors. A site reliability engineer finds and reports errors in web platforms. Okay, so site reliability engineering is a subset of web development that encompasses principles and practices that integrate software engineering with IT infrastructure and operations to enhance system reliability. SRE shares some similarities with DevOps, which focus on software development and operational practices. Another role built around fixing errors, a test engineer, builds automated tests to discover errors in software and make sure that it meets a company's standards. Almost all major technology companies offer cash rewards to intrepid programmers who can find bugs in their software. Google, Amazon, and Microsoft all encourage users to seek out bugs and report any they might find. Why do they do this? Why would a major technology company want its users to try to break their software? Because they understand that encountering bugs is one of the best ways you can improve your code. Bugs show you where the weaknesses are, make you really consider what you want your code to accomplish, and then guide you towards building more reliable and secure products. Tools to tackle code errors. Okay, I get it. I shouldn't be scared of my error message. Error messages, but just changing how I feel doesn't help me get past this error message right in front of me. What should I do? You're right, imaginary person in my head. Celebrating an error isn't going to make that error go away. You have to be able to bust through the error to really start improving. Let's outline a couple of steps to take to solve any compiler errors. Errors that print out to the console as you code that you might encounter. The following steps will guide you through a standard error that might get thrown your way as you learn to code. And they'll show you that errors aren't as scary as they seem. In fact, the steps are mostly a combination of reading the error carefully or copy-pasting it in a Google search. So 1, dissect the error. When an error first appears on your screen, find the line in the error specific to your code. Lots of error messages have tons of boilerplate details that aren't important to the actual error. You want to find that part in the error that gives you insight as to what happened. I ran into an error recently when I was trying to create a program that could store a list of grades for a bunch of classes a fictional student might be taking. I had a list of classes and a list of grades, and I wanted to combine them into a list of class-grade pairs that I could add and remove classes and grades from. When I ran my code, I encountered the following error. Traceback, file script.py, line 9 in the module, gradebook.append. So we have .append, visual arts, 93, and attribute error. The zip object has no attribute. Append. What's that about? Gradebook.append. Why is it talking about zip though? Zip object has no attribute. If it said gradebook has no attribute, maybe I would understand that. Or gradebook has no method, so you can't do gradebook.append. Which line do we care about? Well, the first 3 here are all just talking about where the error occurred, not what the error was. So it says trace back, most recent call last. The second line, it's what file it's in, what line it's in, what module it's in, and then gradebook.append, and it's got 2 arguments in there, or, well, 1 argument, because it's in rounded brackets, you see. So there's 1 argument, which is visual arts, 93. But anyway, those first 3 lines, traceback file gradebook.append, are just talking about where the error occurred. But the 4th line says attribute error. Zip object has no attribute. And that's our error message. This is what went wrong. We may not know exactly what it means yet, but we're on the path to finding out. We know that we used a zip object in our code, so that could be a great place to start. So that's 1, right? Dissect the error, first of all. And 2, ask yourself, is the solution in the error? Is the solution in the error? Often, you'll encounter syntax errors that show exactly where the error occurred and what the error was. When you get these types of errors, you can go directly back to your code and fix them. Here's an example of a syntax error. File scrabble.py for py for Python, line 23. For player, words in players-to-words.items, there's a syntax error. Here, I forgot to include a colon at the end of my for statement. Notice that in this case, the compiler often points to exactly where the error occurred with the circumflex symbol. So you can see under items, so we've done players-to-words.items. There's actually an arrow here. So notice that in this case, the compiler often points to exactly where the error occurred with the circumflex symbol, making it easier to fix. 3. Search for other people who have encountered this error. Often, step 2 will not apply, so step 2 is the solution in the error. Right, so that word of warning, if you're doing a for statement for da-da-da in da-da-da, and remember to put the dot items, so players to words is probably a dictionary. For players, words, and remember, players is you've come up with those 2 words. You've said, okay, player is going to be what I'm going to give, the name I'm going to give to the key, and words is going to be the name, right? So it's like you're saying, I'm going to call it player and words. So for player, words in dictionary dot items, but then you need to have a colon. And then think what kind of thing might come underneath. But anyway, that's 4 loops. We'll get back to that. 3. Search for other people who have encountered this error. Often step 2 won't apply and you'll have to dive a little deeper into the error. Let's return to the gradebook error I encountered in step 1. Since the solution isn't immediately obvious, I'm going to have to do a bit of searching online. Copy and paste the important part of the error message into a search engine and look through several pages if necessary until you find someone else who has also run into that issue. Google is always a good place to check, but another excellent resource to search through is Stack Overflow, which is a wonderful community of programmers sharing knowledge and building cool stuff. I want to solve the error, attribute error. Attribute error. Zip object has no attribute to append. So I will Google that line and see what comes up. The first result I find isn't super related, but that's okay. So, oh, okay, it's an actual web page. I thought it was going to be an image. So the first result that came up is this GitHub page. Yeah, code, issues, pull requests, actions. And it says drqn attribute error, zip object has no attribute append. So it looks relevant. It's open though, so it's not been solved. And there's 2 comments. I run the code and I meet a problem like this, and they are. It says target set success 5000 0.65 98% traceback most recent call last file deep recurrent queue dash network.py line 35. We've got, it says file, and then we have a path to a file, line 52 in save to center, and again an attribute error. Same issue here. So this user, so that's the first user, silent, that's the name of the user, silent observers, 2018. This is another user here called Paul Simviant, writing the next month, so February of 2018. And Paul says same issue here, running a new MacBook Pro, model identifier, processor name, Intel Core, processor speed, number of processors, and then I suspect that you are running this with Python 3. Then the zip returns an iterator, see here, and we can see that 15 people have given this a thumbs up, which suggests that this is an answer, this is a solution, and we have a link to this URL. This is a URL, this blue text here. It says https://docs.python.org/free. So this is a link to official Python documentation, and specifically documentation for Python 3. And remember, that's what we're learning about, Python 3. Then the zip, and that's a function because of the rounded brackets. The rounded brackets show that it takes something in. Obviously there's nothing in the rounded brackets here, but it shows it takes an input, so it shows it's a function. Then the zip returns an iterator. See here, it returns an iterator. And an iterator is something like a for in loop, I believe, because we can iterate over a dictionary, okay? So to say zip returns the iterator means the output, presumably it means the output of the function is an iterator, like a for loop. Go to this, go to python.org/free/library/functions.html. So there's a special page all about functions to fix this for Python 3. And you could change line 51 in helper.py to be images has assigned to it, and then the list function applied to the zip function, buffer array, and then : 0. Buffer array. Well, I'm not sure what that all means now, but we can make sense of some of it. We have the list function being applied to the zip function, and the point is though, this user here, for Tom, is referring to line 51 in helper.py. So that's a file, helper.py, and if you remember, that appears in the original, here we go, helper.py. That's in this path here, home, Jimmy, textbook. He's talking about the fact that there's a problem on line 52 of helper.py. But anyway, the first result, he says that page, this with these 3 commenters, is not actually that helpful. But anyway, that's free. It's still a good step. Search for other people who've encountered this error. 4, compare their use case to yours. Often you will not find someone who is trying to do the exact same thing you are trying to do, but who still encountered the same error. Read through their code a bit and see if it's comparable to yours. Even if their code is wildly different, the 1 or 2 lines that threw the error might be very similar to your code, so the solution may end up being the same. Consider my attribute error. I found a result that didn't seem related at all. But scrolling down to the third result, I can see, again, this is for Tom again, commented, right, yeah, yes, okay, so you actually read the page. I'm running Python 3, he says. And all he had to do to fix his code was change this to this. So he used to have images, had assigned to it the zip function applied to buffer array, and then : 0. So we have square brackets, and in the square brackets we have : 0. And we change that to images having assigned to it list. So look, there was no list here, but if we add list, keep everything else the same, so it's still the zip function, still buffer array, we still have : 0, whatever that means. Actually, I think I do know what that means. 0 up to something. I think it's a slice, something like that. So the square brackets mean we're dealing with an array, and we want to deal with a subsection of that array. So : 0. It's worth a shot. And 5, try to implement the solution. Tweak the code a bit to match your use case and give it a shot. Worst case is that the error doesn't go away and then you can try again. Best case is that it's fixed and you've learned what was causing your error. Every solution you implement is a new tool you can add to your programmer's toolbox and another error you will know how to solve in the future. Thankfully, 4Tom's solution was able to solve my issues with that .zip object. All I had to do was convert it into a list. Let's just have a little look at this animation here. So you can see the first line, we have subjects equals and then something in square brackets, physics, calculus, poetry. So I think that's an array or is it a list? And then we have another one, we have grades, and that's equal to 98, 97. So again, things in square brackets separated by commas. And then we have a new variable called grade book. So we've had subjects, grades, now grade book. And that basically manipulates the grades array and the subjects array. So it takes them in and does something with them. And that's where list and zip comes in. And then he does gradebook.append. So he's calling the append method. So gradebook.append, and he passes in 2 arguments, visual arts and 93. So visual arts is like physics or calculus, it's another subject, and 93 is another grade. So basically you can take looks like you can take a list and just append something onto it. So he's just adding something on. In the process of figuring out this compiler error, the question is a compiler the same as the interpreter? In the process of figuring out this compiler error, I learned that the zip function does not return a list. It actually returns an iterator. I also learned that this is a new feature of Python 3 that didn't exist with Python 2.7. See, every error is an opportunity to learn. So zip doesn't return a list, it returns an iterator. Zip returns an iterator. 6, if it doesn't work, repeat steps 2.2 to 4. So 2 to 4. So ask yourself, is the solution in the error? Search for other people who've encountered it. Compare their use case to yours. So that's 4. Compare their use case to yours. Keep searching through Google and Stack Overflow. The answer will be there. Sometimes it's helpful to Google parts of the error message, not the entire line. Consider the attribute error. If I Googled just .zip object, remember it doesn't return a list, it returns an iterable, an iterator. If I Googled just the zip object, I'd learn a lot of the same information that I got from Googling the full error. The solutions to your errors are out there, and the process of finding them will make you a stronger and more confident programmer. As you grow and learn, expect to encounter countless errors, and expect each one to be its own unique learning opportunity. Special thanks to Natalia Rodriguez for contributing to this article. So that was learning from errors in your code. Lesson complete.